West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please. Hey, what do you say, folks? It is Tuesday, believe it or not. Tuesday, August 11. And here we go. The Bill Press Show on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream. Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. Another day in the vineyard, another golf game for President Obama. That's going to be par for the course, barring rain, of course, up there in on Martha's Vineyard. Meanwhile, for Bernie Sanders, another day, another huge crowd, this time in Los Angeles. Last evening, 27,500 people inside and outside the arena, almost matching the crowd that he had in Portland, Oregon the day before of 28,000. And remember, he started off the weekend with 16,000 up in Seattle. Feel the burn indeed. Coast to coast, Bernie Sanders is catching fire. He is raising money. He is drawing huge crowds, getting lots of volunteers. Is it time, finally, that people will start taking Bernie seriously? He's not just a flash in the pan. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, yes, still won't let up on Megyn Kelly. He demands that she apologize to him, but he has made up with Fox News, and he is actually going to be back on Fox and Friends this morning. Fox is letting him back on the network. And meanwhile, proving once again that all the pundits are wrong, Donald Trump's standing in the polls has actually gone up since the debate, not down. He is now number one in Iowa with 19% of the vote. Scott Walker with second with 12% of the vote. And a shocking report out yesterday about air traffic controllers falling asleep at the job. Doesn't that make you feel a lot safer when you fly? Well, let's fly through the next 3 hours and give us a call. Join the fun at 866-55-PRESS. Look forward to hearing from you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Bean's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects, like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends. I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Bernie packs them in Los Angeles. Feel the burn. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Happy Tuesday. Here we go on a Tuesday, August 11. Great to see you today. It is The Bill Press Show getting underway here. For the next 3 hours, we'll be hopscotching all around the world to bring you the news of the day, starting out here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where you find us a little squirreled away on our studio here on Capitol Hill, but reaching out to you to every corner of this great land of ours, coast to coast, on the radio and on television, on your local progressive talk radio station, on the TuneIn app or the iHeartRadio app, both of them free. Download them, use them, follow us on the radio wherever you go. We're here with you on television on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. So the bottom line is you cannot escape. There is no excuse for being with us every day, every minute of the 3 hours that we are together. And if you miss any of it, you're just going to miss out on the news of the day and miss your chance to talk about what's going on. And you do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We're sending us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy in place, ready to go. Hello, guys.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Yep, saddle up.
Tuesday.
Woohoo.
I know. Jamie Benson, ready for your calls this early in the day at 866-55-PRESS, and Monty Canceller on the job as our videographer today. We'll talk about Bernie in just a little bit, but, Stephen Colbert, he's chomping at the bit.
Oh, my God.
I mean, can you imagine being the same thing with Jon Stewart? I can't tell you how many people have said, "Oh, I miss Jon Stewart so badly." God. With this GOP debate, he wasn't around to give us his analysis of the debate and of all the ongoing Donald Trump post-debate comments. And but he ain't coming back. Stephen Colbert's coming back. It's just that right now he doesn't have a platform. So he was at I used to go to these when I was at CNN, Crossfire. They get all the TV critics together, and the networks show off their talent in whatever shows they're promoting. And of course, they're talking about the new Stephen Colbert show. He was there yesterday and said, "Here's how he's passing his time.
Every night before I go to bed, I light a candle and pray that he stays in the race. And I also pray that no one puts that candle anywhere near his hair."
He just hopes that he's still in the race by the time his show starts.
Yeah.
And
when does the show start? September
8th.
8th, yeah.
Early September.
Day after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will still be there.
I think so.
Oh, I
think so.
That's like 3 weeks away.
Yeah, no, he could do this.
Yeah, think about it, right. He in fact, proving the pundits wrong once again. The latest polls out yesterday show that Donald Trump is actually up in the polls since the debate. He is now in number one in Iowa, where he had not been before. The latest poll in Iowa, the PP poll, is Trump number one at 19%. Scott Walker has fallen down to number two at 12%.
We told you he won that debate.
There
He's
it is.
unstoppable.
Yeah, well,
You think we're making it up?
We'll see.
At any rate, I'll tell you, Bernie's one is unstoppable, I think. So, it's a Tuesday. We bring you Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky, and happy to do so again. Clinton Yates will be here as a friend of Bill a little bit later, and we'll also go out to Ferguson, Missouri, and talk to Wes Lowery, Washington Post reporter, who got a surprise letter yesterday from the police department.
You mean inmate Lowery?
Yeah. We don't know whether we'll be talking to him from his prison cell or from the courtroom.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. Absolutely outrageous that a year later, after the first protest in Ferguson, Wes Lowery, who had that little, he and another,
Ryan Riley, yeah.
Ryan Riley from the Huffington Post were in this McDonald's restaurant and reporting, doing their job. And a cop came in and told them they had to leave, and they suggested maybe they might stay.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, they didn't give him any reason.
No. And a year later, he gets a notice that he's got to appear in court and answer charges.
Dumb.
Well, we'll find all about it from the horse's mouth, right, a little bit later in the program. And Bernie, big day yesterday, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news.
Yes.
There is a company that is calling itself Uber, but for weed. It's called Eaze, E-A-Z-E, and it's operating in California for medical marijuana users. You can use the app. You go online.
They tell you where the nearest...
No, they bring it to you.
Oh.
They bring it to you. They will go to the dispensary, pick up your weed for you, and bring it to your house. And they just got
in California, this is just medical.
Yeah. But you know how the medical marijuana program in California is. Basically, anybody who wants a card can get a card.
That's not true.
That's 100% true. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying you want a medical card in California, you're going to get one. My point here is Eaze just got a big backer. Snoop Dogg has kicked in some money to try and turn them into a bigger company. He is funding this delivery app. They said that they've already made 30,000 deliveries. It started in California, in San Francisco, in California. They want to expand all over California.
All right.
Do you have to pay extra to have the Snoop Dogg van deliver your weed?
Yeah. Snoop would probably deliver it himself, as long as you get him high.
I'm going to be in San Francisco in a couple of weeks. I might have to try it out.
Download that app for you on your phone, and you let me know how it goes. Yesterday, opening in Jupiter, Florida, a new restaurant called The Woods Jupiter. It's called The Woods because it is the first restaurant from Tiger Woods, an $8 million big restaurant in Jupiter, Florida. It's called Sports and Dining Club. Mostly steaks, couple of salads, chops, things like that. But again, $8 million to go eat in Tiger Woods restaurant.
What a catchy name.
The Woods.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Woods. Well, that's where Tiger Woods seems to be finding most of his balls these days. The Woods.
Jupiter's a pretty Tony place, right?
Sure,
It's a part of Florida, so he'll do okay there.
I think he'll be fine. And, Bill, I got some bad news. Hillary Clinton had previously gotten an endorsement from Lil B, the bass god from the pack, the rapper. He has changed his endorsement.
Oh, no.
He is now endorsing
Jim Webb.
Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. Yeah, he went on a series of tweets last month explaining, he said, as much as I want a woman leading the USA, right now it's all about Bernie. He's the real. He loves us. He talked about Bernie Sanders and his past. He says, I heard Bernie marched against segregation in the 60s, which was not that long ago. I love that brave dude, Lil B. So the CNN caught up with Lil B and said that that was a big reason that he changed his endorsements because of all the work that Bernie Sanders did in the civil rights movement. And he cited that during the civil rights movement, Hillary Clinton was out supporting Barry Goldwater.
Let me tell you,
Republican.
This is not the first person, nor will it be the last, right?
No, I know.
To defect from Hillary to Bernie.
Yeah. And by the way, we should point out, Bernie Sanders followed Lil B, the bass god, back on Twitter.
Oh.
So I'd like to see Bernie get Lil B out on the stump, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These tweets are great. Shouts out to Bernie Sanders. He's not a paid-off politician who was bought off by some private companies. Stay real, Bernie. Lil B.
That's funny. Okay. Yeah, well, that's where we start. Bernie, and the question I ask you is, will people finally start to take Bernie seriously? 866-55-PRESS. I think they better. 866-55-77-377. And let's talk about it. Yes, indeed. He was in Los Angeles yesterday. I talked to, been in touch with a lot of friends who were going out to that big rally at the L.A. Memorial Coliseum. Not the Memorial, the sports arena, rather, which is right near the Coliseum. Now, if he filled the Coliseum, that would be something. That would be like 100,000. But he filled the sports arena, 27,500 inside and outside the sports arena. That's what the police estimated. That is huge. And nobody's getting crowds like that. Almost as big as the record crowd for this campaign of any candidate of 28,000 that Bernie pulled out in Portland, Oregon on Sunday, and 16,000 in Seattle on Saturday. This guy is on a roll. People love him. He's got the right message at the right time. It is really, really happening. He was introduced to, you go to L.A. L.A. means celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And when I was there in L.A., when I was Democratic chair of California, we never had a dinner. We never had an event without having some big name actor, Ed Asner, Jane Fonda, whatever, introduce the speakers or speak themselves. Bernie tapped Sarah Silverman, great comic, yesterday to introduce him to the crowd at the sports arena.
Next president of the United States, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Listen to that crowd.
Yeah.
She's a big deal. She
is. That's a big name.
She was a big endorser of Barack Obama, made a couple of videos for him during the campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's one of the biggest names in comedy. That's a huge
deal. Bernie with his voice a little hoarse from being on the stump there, talking again about the billionaire class.
We have a message to the billionaire class. And that message is you can't have it all.
You can't have it all. It's just, isn't that great? This is lay it out there. Everybody gets that, man. He also said, and his whole thing is about grassroots. And what they do at these rallies, I've talked to people who've gone to them, and I've talked to Bernie's staff about it. I mean, they don't let anybody get in there without giving them and badgering them. They can't force them, right? They get their email address, and then they follow up. So now they know who they are, and they follow up to get them to volunteer and to give money. It is a total grassroots campaign. And here is Bernie talking about that's what we need.
We need a grassroots political revolution.
And by the way, so then, with this Bernie, with a little bit of trouble that he had up in Seattle with the Black Lives Matter, a couple of people, protesters who pretended or maybe gave the impression that they were representing the Black Lives Matter movement, and in fact they were not. But Bernie has taken that challenge on directly. And I mentioned yesterday, Senator Cory Booker has come out and said, wait a minute, this is the last guy that they ought to be protesting. I mean, he was down there marching, in the civil rights movement, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, Lil B
pointed that out, too. But now, and Bernie has made that part of his stump speech right now.
There is no president, none, 1 year after the death of Michael Brown, no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism than I will. No president who will push harder for fundamental changes in our criminal justice system.
Yeah, he's right on target there. Yeah.
And by the way, as we've talked about this before, we've done this show together for 10 years. We've talked about Bernie on these issues that whole time.
Hasn't changed. Yeah.
Like, this is a consistent message. This is not him changing with the times to try and capitalize on the news. This is Bernie.
This is Bernie. This is Bernie. This is who he is, and it's starting to show. We saw before that he is up. He's within 6 points of Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire, the first primary. And now in Iowa, he is closing and still far behind Hillary Clinton in Iowa. But what's interesting, so the latest numbers in Iowa, the caucus states, show 52% for Hillary, 25% for Bernie. But when it started out just a month or so ago, she had 62% and he has had 14. So he has almost doubled and she has dropped. And that's been the movement in the polls. So he's getting the crowds, he's getting the poll numbers, he's raising huge amounts of money, all from small contributions, online contributions. And yet still, you notice the coverage. When you see anybody talking about the 2016 campaign, they talk about all the Republicans, and then they talk about Hillary Clinton. Or anybody just says, Hillary Clinton. She's the nominee. She's the nominee. There's no question.
Yeah.
Why aren't they taking Bernie more seriously? They should be taking him more seriously. He could win Iowa. He could win New Hampshire. And if he does, with that behind him, he could go all the way. Do you think they'll finally, my question to you, given what we see of Bernie, do you think they'll finally start taking Bernie seriously as a candidate, not just a flash in the pan who happens to be getting big crowds? Can he do what Howard Dean was not able to do? Translate those big crowds into votes? I think so. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law, so we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post joins us at the half hour. He's been writing a lot about Bernie Sanders. And by the way, the big news for Bernie Sanders yesterday, of course, is he got a big endorsement, huge endorsement, the endorsement of the National Nurses United, which is the largest union representing nurses across this country. Very significant because, of course, I don't know what percentage, but most nurses are women. They did not endorse Hillary Clinton. They endorsed Bernie Sanders. The executive director said yesterday, Roseanne DeMoro, about Bernie, he's real, he's authentic. That's why we're supporting him. Do you think the rest of the world will start taking Bernie seriously? Ron in Paisley, Florida. Hello, Ron. Thanks for starting us off.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, great. What's up? What do you think?
Well, I'm all for Bernie. I think he's the real deal. But I think that once the DNC starts taking him seriously and Hillary's numbers keep going down and his keep going up, you're going to see Joe Biden jump in there as the establishment candidate.
Well, you know, that might happen, Brian. I have said that in the past, that the better Bernie does, the more likely it is that Joe steps in. But, you know, Bernie can still hold his own. Douglas is out in Oakland, California. Hey, Douglas, what do you say?
Hey, Bill, I agree with your previous caller, but one of the things I'm calling you for is to chide you for not mentioning the National Nurses Union, but first, before the rapper. I mean, hey, I have a sister who's a nurse. I have a sister who's a nurse in Ohio and one in New Jersey. My mom's a retired nurse. Strong union. Yeah. They're huge. One of the issues that they said was Bernie's position on Medicare.
Yes.
And the position on the influence, undue influence of Wall Street. And I'm sorry, I forgot the third one issue.
No, you're right. It is huge, and I probably should have started off with that endorsement. And not only that, Douglas, you got a couple of sisters who are nurses. I have a son who is a nurse. Okay, so I stand with the nurses and with Bernie. More calls coming up with Arthur Delaney.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
Hi, this is Bernie Sanders. I just want to congratulate Bill Press for 10 years of great radio. Bill, the progressive community needs your voice, and thank you so much for all that you're doing. Take care.
There you go.
Bernie, up early, so early this morning. He's in L.A., man. You realize how early it is out in L.A.? Yeah, but the Bernie, he loves us and we love him. Here he is. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for the 10th anniversary greeting. 33 minutes after the hour now on a Tuesday, August 11. Tuesday, you know what that means. Yep, and he's here. Arthur Delaney, Huffington Post, political reporter, and all around, good friend of the program. Arthur, it's great to see you. Welcome back. We missed you last week.
I don't work as hard as Bernie Sanders.
Man, I'll tell you.
He gets up early.
Right. 27,500 in L.A. yesterday evening. Almost matching the 28,000 crowd that he pulled out in Portland, Oregon. What's going on with Bernie?
He's got Bernie-mentum.
Yeah,
people have a thirst for Bernie. People want to feel the burn.
And they are.
Yeah, and it reflects the fact that he occupies a part of the political stage right now that no one else does.
Right. So all the stories now that so many stories now are being written. Is he just another Howard Dean who is going to show so much excitement, draw such big crowds, and then when it comes down to actually delivering a vote, he just falls apart, peters out, and then he's gone? Is this another flash in the pan, or will people start taking Bernie seriously, or should they?
I think people already have started taking Bernie seriously. But he's always said, "I'll get into this if I don't see candidates talking about issues the way they need to be talked about."
Right, that's where he started.
Right, which to me has always indicated from the start that in large part his campaign is about messaging, and that he himself doesn't consider it really likely that he's going to become the Democratic nominee. But what's happening does show you, I think it's showing everybody that he was right, that people want to hear what he's got to say, and that was unexpected. Even after all the Occupy protests and the minimum wage debate that occurred, there is even more demand for liberal politics of the sort that you wouldn't actually get.
And
from a Democratic
his
primary.
message of economic populism, which nobody else was really making their central issue or the central issue. But you know what? I think and you're absolutely right, because Bernie told us on the program several times, if nobody else is talking about these issues, somebody has to. I will.
Yeah, he's like, fine,
I'm willing to.
I'll tie on my cleats once
But
more.
I think he's moved to the next step now. I think now he sees how this is resonating, that they really do. They're building a serious ground campaign in Iowa, in New Hampshire. I think they're going for the gold. They are going for the gold. It's not just about message anymore. It's message plus votes.
Well, he's a funny thing about it is that he's able to campaign. Hillary Clinton is his foil, but he doesn't really have an opponent right now, and there's no oppo being dumped on him. That is opposition research.
Yeah, right.
And we're seeing what that looks like for the Trumps and the Bushes, and it's real ugly, and it has an effect on enthusiasm for your supporters. So that he's in a vacuum, an oppo vacuum.
Yeah. It's true. In the same way that Trump has touched on something, and the Republicans, in a completely different way, Bernie certainly touched on something for Democrats. Who else in politics today, in American politics, could get two back-to-back crowds of 30,000? Obama? Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, right. We all said used to.
Yeah.
Right.
He
exactly.
used to.
So the question is to all of us: do you think people will finally start now seeing the impact that he's having to take Bernie seriously, or should they? 866-55-PRESS. Arthur, let's go to Beverly out in St. David, Illinois. Hey, Beverly.
Good morning, Bill. How are you doing?
Good. What's up?
Well, I'm a little disappointed in you.
Oh, Beverly.
Well, I am Arthur. This is it. I am 62 years old, okay? And I am tired of old white men in the White House. Okay? Now,
wait a minute, Beverly.
Well, we have a young black man in the White House now.
Well, I love him.
Oh,
but
okay.
that's not the point. The point is this. Bernie, yeah, he's great. But Hillary Clinton has been talking about these same programs and things for years. Nobody's given her credit for nothing. She gave a speech yesterday that was mentioned twice on MSNBC yesterday. Once with, thank God for the Reverend Al Sharpton, and two, Michael Eric Dyson, who had Adam Green on, who said this was the greatest thing for education that has come down the pike. $350 billion to wipe out debt for college students, free college for 2 years and 4-year college, different things. It was fantastic. Nobody except those two people even mentioned it.
Beverly has a strong point.
She does. How many people talked about Bernie's rally yesterday on MSNBC?
Well, from when I watched it, because I was gone for a while, and I was planting a rose yesterday afternoon, I'd have to say I saw, like I said, the two people that I said mentioned it.
Well, mentioned Hillary, but I'm just saying they're not paying any attention to Bernie Sanders on much attention, at least either. Look, I take your point, Beverly. I love Hillary Clinton. If she were president of the United States, I'd be dancing in the streets. I supported her over Barack Obama in 2008 because of her experience and because of who she is, and I think she'd be a great president. But I'm just saying Bernie is also a very serious candidate. I disagree with you on that this has been her primary focus. It has not. It simply has not. Bernie's talked about these issues, and he has been for the last 40 years. This is who Bernie is.
I think you're right about that, Bill, but Beverly does make a strong point. She's clearly a savvy consumer of news. This week, in this news cycle, Hillary Clinton, who did unveil a major college funding proposal yesterday.
She went beyond where Barack Obama has gone.
She's been overshadowed by Bernie, who is maybe himself being overshadowed by Black Lives Matter protests, interrupting his speeches. She's being overshadowed by Donald Trump and Fox News.
I was just going to
say,
Eric
Erickson, these incredibly sexist windbags have been sucking up the oxygen.
I think both Bernie and Hillary have been overshadowed by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But she's getting her share of attention. I don't see many people talking about the Bernie phenomenon either. That's why I wanted to talk about it this morning. The only stories I see are that Bernie's it's a seasonal thing. By the end of summer, the crowds will be gone. The first vote comes, and then we'll never hear from him anymore. I disagree. I think it's more serious than that. Ida, out in Westminster, Colorado. Hello, Ida.
I just I listen to you almost every morning if I wake up, which I do. I drink coffee out of your mug every morning, by the way. Anyway, I'm all for Bernie Sanders. I donated to his campaign even before this. I donated this time and when he ran in Wisconsin because I love Bernie. I think he's unique. He's been for the people, and and I hope that we can get him to the White House. But Bill, before I leave you, I need to ask you a quick question. I'm really anxious to find out what happened to the Ed Show.
What happened to the Ed Show is that's the two of them really go together. I think what happened to the Ed Show is MSNBC made a huge mistake. MSNBC, at a time when economic populism is as Bernie is proving, I think, right, the message of the day for progressives, for Democrats to win on, they took the one show on MSNBC that is all about economic populism, namely the Ed Show, off the air.
Well, they took 3 shows off the air, and it was one of them.
Yeah, she asked about the Ed Show. And his show in particular, he's always been, he's had Bernie on all the time. He and Bernie are good friends. His message is Bernie's message, always has been. And I think MSNBC has decided that they've got to go in a different direction. And they're going to try to not outfox Fox, but I think they're going to try to be more like CNN. I think they're making a big mistake.
They're going to have Brian Williams on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's safe space for him. Yeah. They have decided.
Right. And I think that's right. I regret that. It's a good friend. He's done a great job, and he was a real plus for MSNBC, as he was for his radio show for so many years. All right, Arthur, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to hear all about the job, your take on the July job numbers, because we didn't have a chance to talk about them Friday because we were so busy talking about the debate. See?
They took our jobs.
Donald Trump. He's blocking out all the news about anything else. Arthur Delaney with us, and you will be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, You have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour. Arthur's brother by another mother, Igor Volsky, joining us at the top of the hour from Think Progress. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. We always depend on you for the insights into what the job numbers mean, Arthur. 251,000 new private sector jobs in the month of July, and unemployment records staying at the same 5.3%.
Was it 251 or 215?
I had 251 is what I saw.
Well,
yeah, I think pretty sure.
Both of those are moderately positive numbers. Yeah. We would like to see bigger numbers. And the unemployment rate stayed at 5.3%.
It's at 215. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Which is 5.3% is 5.3% is low and good, but there are things, and typically for this recovery, there are things about it that aren't so great. The employment to population ratio has only gone up 1% since 2011, and this is something Dean Baker at the Center for Economic and Policy Research harped on.
What does that mean?
It means the unemployment rate would be higher if these other people who are not counted as unemployed because they did not look for a job in the last 4 weeks had looked for a job.
But that's always the case, isn't it?
Well, it seems that way, but that's not necessarily good. It could be a new normal, but it more likely reflects that people still think the economy's not that good, or the jobs available aren't that good, so they're not really.
But aren't you bearing the lead? Isn't this like the lead that this is maybe 25 or 30 months in a row where we've had over 200,000 new jobs created?
No, I'm not bearing. I said it's a moderately positive jobs report, and that's certainly the headline. Like, this is still basically good news, and you can find stuff to poop about if you look for it.
Right.
But the headlines are positive, and you don't have to discount them. You don't have to say the real numbers show something else. You don't have to say it's a conspiracy to mask what's really going on. It's still moderately positive.
What should it, to get back to as close as we could get in any economy to full employment, what would we really like to see? Over 300? Is that?
Oh yeah. I mean, you'd want it to go up over 300, 400. That would be terrific.
All right.
Absolutely. But 5.3% is close to what they don't consider unemployment rate of 0% a thing.
Yeah.
They want it 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
That's the target. And if it goes above that, we'd have inflation as the thing everyone's worried about.
But you were saying off the air that there's a problem, and you've at Huffington Post written about this, not just with unemployment, but with overemployment?
Yes. Now, this is a problem that people don't know it's a problem.
Overemployment to me says people are working too long, too hard.
Yes. And your friend Bernie Sanders is one of the only major politicians who talks about it. He doesn't use the term overemployment. Overemployment, people, economists know about it, but they don't consider it a real problem. And we gauge it based on surveys. And the government doesn't track it in its massive survey it does every month that leads to the jobs numbers we're talking about. It's something that Huffington Post has tracked for the past 3 years, and it went up in our most recent survey in July from 16% last year to 20%. And the way we ask the question is, would you give up would you work a day less for a day less pay? In other words, would you take a 20% pay cut for 20% less work? And 20% of people said yeah. And so we say the overemployment rate is at 20%. And this overemployment and underemployment are flip sides of the same coin. Because you can imagine if these people could have the hours they wanted, then that would the work that they were no longer doing would be something that underemployed people could then do,
or get paid what they think they should get paid. Correct?
Yeah, I mean it's underemployment itself is really a problem of not enough money. Exactly. It's not that people are just dying to do flip burgers or whatever it is they wind up doing. So that's one reason overemployment tends to be more people who have salaries and not hourly workers who are usually paid less and who are paid by the hour, saying they would like fewer hours.
So for these people who give that 20%, if you said we will raise your salary or we will or your hourly wage, all right, we will pay you more money, would they be willing to? Oh yeah, well, they'd be willing to work that extra day.
Yeah, it's 1 in 5 people who would say we'll work less for less pay. If when we ask, would you work less for the same pay, everyone's like, yeah, of course.
Oh, right.
And there are,
or would you work more for more pay?
And a comparable number of people would work more for more pay too. So this is our survey. It's based on a few questions. The jobs number is a survey of 60,000 households, and they do like dozens of questions to put it together. So it's a much less precise and detailed thing. But it raises the issue, and this is why Bernie Sanders talks about overwork and the problem of people not having a 40-hour work week. The average work week in this country for full-time workers is 42 hours. And, among certain groups like men, it's higher than that. And people would like, a lot of people, to work less.
Were you, I know you were on vacation last week, so, but I imagine you paid some attention to the Republican debate Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Weren't you impressed by how many economic issues that they talked about, how often people brought up the minimum wage and fair pay and
I honestly didn't I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't see a single question on those topics.
There was not a single question.
I know there had been a question, I think, in the lower tier debate about moochers, about handouts and the rise of food stamp enrollment, which was just an untrue question because food stamp enrollment has started going down. Yeah. And so that was not good.
The question was sort of, how do you convince people that they shouldn't be just waiting for a handout or something like that? It was a really lame question. But in the primetime debate, 2 hours, there was nothing about income inequality, minimum wage, fair pay for women. Nothing.
Which is surprising because those guys are ready to talk about some of that stuff. They've got talking points. They want to pander to populists. And Rand Paul this week has been saying income inequality is at least partly due to people just not working hard enough.
All right. That's got to be it. Arthur, so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Feel the burn.
Feel the burn.
We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined. Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
All right, we're just getting started today on this Tuesday. Lots to talk about. Bernie Sanders, a huge crowd in Los Angeles yesterday. Yes, indeed. And Donald Trump back on Fox News today. They have kissed and made up, and Donald Trump keeps going up in the polls. Igor Volsky from Think Progress steps in right here at the top of the next hour, so stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving.
and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies
gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Another big crowd for Bernie Sanders last night in Los Angeles. 27,500 people at the sports arena. Feel the burn. Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody. Tuesday, August 11. Good to see you. Here we go. It is the Bill Press Show. We are here to bring you up to date on what's going on today. Whether it's news from our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe, we got it all covered. We'll tell you what's going on and want to hear from you what it all means to you. It's not just all about Donald Trump. There's a lot more to talk about, so we'll bring you up to date on all of what's happening. And you tell us, where you come down on it all at 866-55-PRESS. And here to help us through the news of the next half hour, Igor Volsky from Think Progress. It's Tuesday. It's Prince Igor. Hello,
good morning.
Igor, how you doing?
Good, and good to be here in this prime 7 a.m. hour when Donald Trump is going to be both on Fox and CNN.
I know, it's so exciting.
Is anyone listening to us?
Is he? Well, they've got people who are watching and listening at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm eager. Oh, yes. Donald Trump will be on the phone.
He's on Fox now.
He is the one guy who never has to go in the studio.
No. What luxury. When you're Trump, you do what you do it over the phone.
Not even Barack Obama can call into every station.
As a producer, this drives me crazy. Because he just calls in on his cell phone.
Yeah.
All the time. And you know what they do? They just put him on.
Yeah.
They just throw, we have Donald Trump on the phone. Who else? They had him on the Sunday show. They had him on ABC this week. And he was on his cell phone.
He was on the phone, really?
No, wait.
I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Also on Meet the Press, also on Face the Nation, and also on State of the Union. 4 shows on his cell phone.
Is that just his style? Why doesn't he just come in and do it? I mean, clearly at this point, this is the only thing he's doing is running for president.
Because he's Donald Trump. He doesn't have to go in the studio.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Wow, I didn't know the Sundays from his phone. That's amazing.
Right. But it's not all about Trump. Bernie Sanders, great crowd last night in Los Angeles, following up on 16,000 in Seattle Saturday, 28,000 in Portland, Oregon Sunday, 27,500 in LA yesterday, and people walking into the sports arena were excited.
Billionaires do not own Bernie.
I'm not sure if Hillary can say no to the money.
He's going to be our next president, so I want to be able to see this.
It turned out they were
such excitement. Wow.
Yeah, they really were. He's on a roll.
It's
it's fun to watch, and I think people may start taking him a little more seriously. He's also raising a lot of money, and his poll numbers have gone up in Iowa.
Yeah, in Iowa,
and
absolutely.
in New Hampshire as well. Lots going on here. Igor Volsky here with the first half hour, and then Ari Berman from the Nation will be here. He's got a great new book out on voting rights. In the next hour, Clinton Yates here as a friend of Bill, and we'll be joined by Washington Post reporter Wes Lowery, who got a summons
from
to
prison
court
cell
yesterday. Yeah. We're not sure we're going to be talking to him this morning from his prison cell or the courtroom or the McDonald's restaurant where he still refuses to leave.
What's that message? You received a call from inmate number in the federal penitentiary.
Inmate Lowery joins us next hour.
Do you choose to accept?
Oh, boy. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Hey, did you know that you could drink all the soda you want and still lose weight? That is what Coca-Cola is trying to tell you. They have teamed up with a group of scientists who are pushing a new science-based solution to obesity critics. What they're saying is, all you have to do is just get more exercise, and you can drink all the calories you could possibly want. They have teamed up again with these scientists who say that really it's not about calories at all. You can eat all the calories you want, just make sure you're getting more exercise in the process. Now,
this is a novel concept.
As I sit here eating my yogurt.
Yeah, right. Now, a lot of people have taken a look at this plan and have called complete and total BS. And Coca-Cola is just making stuff up to try and get people to drink more of their soda. So,
wow.
Well, it is interesting, too, because a lot of physical therapists are saying at the same time, there have been stories, I've seen stories recently, don't count on exercise alone.
Right.
You really have to watch your diet and not eat so much crap, right?
Yeah.
You can't, so...
I mean, I've always viewed Coca-Cola as a protein shake after my workout. So to me, this makes perfect sense.
Nothing really revitalizes you after a nice long run and Coca-Cola. Hey, let me alphabet that for you. Doesn't exactly have the same ring, does it, as let me Google that for you. Yesterday, Google announced that they are restructuring and they are going to rebrand themselves as Alphabet. Now, Google will still be around, and Google will be its own thing. But, you know, there's all these different products and programs that just keep falling under the Google category. There's the Google car, you've got, you know, Google this, Google that. Those are now going to fall under the big parent company of Alphabet. Alphabet, that's going to be the name of the company. Larry Page.
Google search will still be.
Google search will still be a thing.
Right, okay.
Google will still be a thing. But instead of having everything labeled as the Google this or the Google phone or the Google car, it's going to be the Alphabet. It's going to be run by Larry Page and Sergey Brin, of course, Google's co-founders. And it's very, very interesting. It means they've got big, big things on the horizon that they want to have be bigger than just Google.
Yeah, talk about streamlining that management to make sure every department is run in a smart,
like a good
efficient way.
Decision.
Sounds pretty smart,
but
yeah.
People are still, Google is a word now. I mean, it's part of the English language. So.
Yeah, look, I'm not. Google is Google, and it will always be Google. To Newport Beach, where some people were trying to watch a movie and a prankster entered in, a very poorly timed and bad taste prank. A man walked into the movie theater with 2 leaf blowers in his hands, running and blowing, air as a leaf blower does. And of course, people freaked out. They thought it was some sort of an attack. Officers responded. They arrested the man. Nobody was hurt, but. Don't do that.
What was he trying to prove?
That's crazy.
Don't do that. Yeah. He was just trying to be
funny.
Funny. Isn't that hilarious?
All the popcorn went flying, I imagine.
Yeah, right.
A mess. Oof.
Yeah, that's like people used to, like at TSA, make jokes about bombs, right?
Yeah. Oh, don't look in that thing. I've got my bomb in there.
Yeah.
Good luck. Mm-hmm. You deserve whatever you have coming your way.
So, Igor, it's nice to have you here so that we can mount a direct assault on Donald Trump, appearing on Fox News as we speak.
As we speak.
And set to go on CNN. They've been promoting it all morning for 15 minutes from now. So, no matter what he says, right? He continues to dominate the news and go up in the polls.
You know, I'm happy he's doing these morning shows. It's going to mean our national nightmare of the feud that is Donald Trump and Fox News will finally be over, put to rest, so we could all move on collectively. This fight he's been having with Megyn Kelly, who moderated Thursday night's debate and asked him that tough question about his past history of sexism. He then lashed out at her, made all kinds of wild implications about her being on her period when she was asking those questions. And this created this big rift between the Fox network, a lot of the other Republican candidates who lashed out at Trump and defended Kelly. And Trump, for the first time in this campaign, is on some kind of damage control tour where he's trying to explain himself, claiming that's not what he meant at all, that when he said she had blood coming out of all parts, or however he said it.
She had blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
He didn't mean that. He meant her nose. He meant out of her nose. She had a bloody nose, is what he was saying.
Yeah, of course. We've all heard that phrase.
And the question, of course, Bill, as you point out, is can this stop him? Can anything stop him, or do his numbers just keep going up with the Republican
I think
base?
the damage control tour is over. It's over. He's moved beyond that. He's successfully. He's just a bully, but like a bulldozer, just keeps moving on. And now he's saying that the last comment yesterday was that she ought to apologize to him, which nobody took seriously. But look, when he's on Fox News this morning, he's not talking about Megyn Kelly anymore. And his numbers, his post-debate numbers have actually gone up.
There's something, you got to say, there's something about the tactic of going, just blanketing the media, going on every station and talking about everything all the time, that it doesn't allow one story, one major screw-up like the McCain line, like this, to really resonate, because there's just so much all the time, so much Trump. People don't focus on the Megyn Kelly. They move on to whatever else you want to talk about. It's a smart strategy.
Right. I thought that Hillary Clinton made an excellent point yesterday when she pointed out, I guess I liked what she said because I said the same thing on our show yesterday morning, that, okay, so you take away Trump. That doesn't cleanse the Republican Party when it comes to policy. On immigration reform, except for Jeb Bush, maybe, right? They're all as bad as Trump. They'd all... None of them want comprehensive immigration reform, which we need. And on women's health issues, Donald Trump, he attacked Megyn Kelly. But what Marco Rubio said for all women in America, I think was just as frightening. Here's Hillary Clinton yesterday.
While what Donald Trump said about Megyn Kelly is outrageous, what the rest of the Republicans are saying about all women is also outrageous.
Yeah, she made particular reference in another bite to Mark Rubio saying he would not allow, and Mike Huckabee the same, no exception.
And Scott Walker.
Right. No exception at all when it comes to abortion. They're just against it, not even for rape or incest. They would not allow an exception or to save the life of the mother. And they all want to get rid of Obamacare, which benefits mainly women, as we've seen. Across the board on women's health, they're as bad, if not as worse than Donald Trump. George Pataki, I have to mention that. Exactly.
I don't know who that is.
Is the one Republican who is pro-choice.
It must be so painful for people like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Rubio and Walker, who spend so many years trying to appeal to the Tea Party base, to watch those folks just float away from them towards this Donald Trump entertainer person when they've worked so hard to win their support so they could mount this campaign. Rubio went out of his way at the debate on Thursday to point out that he's against all abortion. Rand, in the first 3 seconds of the debate, practically like flung himself across the podium to try to get into a fight with Trump to get attention. That didn't work. I mean, you spend your career trying to build that constituency, and they turn on you the first second there's somebody who's willing to say much more inflammatory rhetoric.
The one person that I thought helped himself the most at the debate, maybe because he's brand new to the scene, John Kasich. I thought John Kasich had a good night.
Yeah.
And now, as you report on Think Progress, post-debate, John Kasich comes out and says, we shouldn't do anything on climate change because it's just a theory.
Well, he says, I believe climate change could be real, but we shouldn't do anything about it because it's going to cost people jobs. And it's just a theory. It's an unprovable theory. So let's hold off for now. But I do think it's real, but we shouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Kasich kind of walked away from that debate with a lot of new fans that are a little maybe more progressive, a little more current. Didn't have the Marco Rubio stance of, outlawing abortion even for rape and incest. But
And Life of the Mother.
You really look right, and you really look into Kasich, and he's out there on a couple things. He's great on a couple of issues, but he's way out there in a lot of other things.
Yeah, he's a really conservative guy. You look at his economic approach. Certainly, when he was chairman of the House Budget Committee, this is a conservative guy when it comes to the actual raw policy. A lot of the things he said in the debate that appealed to people, like his stance on same-sex marriage. Well, he's against it. He attended a same-sex marriage. He'd be fine if his kids were gay. Sounds great. He expanded Medicaid. Okay, that's good. But some of the core policies, the core philosophies are really, I don't think, any different than the rest of the candidates. Maybe on the margins,
what's
certainly.
What's stunning to me is when you look across the board, again, at all 17, I don't see one of these candidates who really reflects what America is today. To me, they're all still like they're in the 1950s or 1960s in terms of the issues. That issues they're not talking about. There was no discussion in that debate about minimum wage or about income inequality or about
climate change,
fair pay for women, equal pay for women. None of
or Black Lives Matter, just one question.
Not even one,
exactly.
Couldn't even handle that.
Couldn't even handle that.
Scott Walker couldn't even. Right. None of that about police-community relations. None of that at all. They're talking abortion and they're talking anti-immigrant.
To be fair, that
debate.
Let's
alienate all women, and let's alienate all Latinos, and let's alienate all African Americans. Like, what's left?
Yeah, what's left? That's the problem in the general election. I think here in a primary debate, they're just appealing to a different audience that really doesn't want to hear about any of those things. Climate change, pay for women, minimum wage. They want to hear about the abortion, about what God tells them, but not about those other issues. When it comes to a general election, I think they're certainly going to pivot.
Yeah. And 24 million people were watching that debate.
Yeah,
some of
remarkable.
Not all of them were Republican right-wingers. A lot of them, I think, were people watching because Donald Trump was there. And it was going to be a sideshow. But
it doesn't help the Republican brand. It certainly doesn't.
That's the point I was
making,
in
mainstream America.
Igor Volsky here with us from Think Progress. And welcome your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Chuck Schumer in a little hot water for his stand on the Iran nuclear deal. We'll talk about that when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour. Don't forget, check it out. Igor Volsky, Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. Igor, director of video, of course, and contributing editor. Igor, you and I have both been talking about Chuck Schumer's decision to oppose the Iran nuclear deal. My column on the Hill, in the Hill this morning, is entitled "Schumer Proves Unworthy to Lead Democrats." I do think, in terms of if you're looking for somebody who's going to pull the Democrats together, Schumer's going in just the opposite direction.
Yeah, Schumer's a guy who voted for the Iraq War, who confirmed Michael Bolton to the UN. John Bolton. Michael Bolton.
Right, okay.
Hey, now. It's beautiful music
yes.
in the morning. John Bolton, of course. And who on Israel is a hawkish lawmaker. No huge surprise that he would be against this deal. What's disappointing, though, is that in that Medium piece where he laid out his opposition on Thursday, he had a lot of the kind of myths about this deal that you hear from opponents, and he kind of spun it in a way that I thought was really unfair, from the point about the 24-day waiting period, which isn't true, to all the other things in there. It sounded like a lot of false talking points. I think you can be against this deal for legitimate reasons. The problem is when you code it with the myths that opponents are trying to lay on it, that's when it comes across as very disingenuous.
Well, we'll see whether any Democrat is willing to. So far, nobody has.
He's not whipping, he said, in favor of that position.
But we'll see whether any Democrat is willing to stand up and challenge him and saying, no. If that's the way you're going to be, right? We don't want you as our next leader. So far, nobody has challenged him. Igor, great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you.
See you next week.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
Crime Advisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry. Hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Now 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, August 11. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C., The Bill Press Show, our studio here on Capitol Hill, where we are brought to you today by AFSCME, all those great workers, good men and women of AFSCME. Under President Lee Saunders, making up the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. For more information about how they're making America happen, go to their website at afscme.org, afscme.org. A huge anniversary marked last week here in the United States, August 6th, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act by President Lyndon Johnson, considered the crowning achievement of the civil rights movement. Where are we today with voting rights? Ari Berman from The Nation magazine has written a great new book called Give Us the Ballot, just out this week, and joins us on our news line this morning. Hi, Ari. Good to talk to you again.
Hey, good to talk
talk to you again. Thanks for having me.
And congratulations on the book.
Thank you,
So
Bill.
I guess with the 50th anniversary, is the battle for voting rights over in this country?
I wish we could say it was over, but it is far from over. In fact, we've entered a whole new struggle for voting rights. What I show in my book is that there has been a 50-year effort to try to roll back the Voting Rights Act from the very minute the Voting Rights Act was passed, and that effort dramatically escalated after the election of President Obama when Republicans passed a whole new wave of new voting restrictions and also were intent on gutting the Supreme Court. So we've seen a dramatic escalation of attempts to make it harder to vote while the Supreme Court has gutted the Voting Rights Act as well. So we're in a very intense struggle for voting rights today.
And this is a well-organized campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't just get state legislatures all across the country introducing bill after bill after bill without someone organizing it. This just doesn't happen on its own. And what we've seen in the last 4 years, from 2011 to 2015, is 468 new voting restrictions introduced in 49 states. So this debate has taken place all across the country.
49 states. Many more than
49
I thought.
states.
Really?
I mean, I tweeted a map last week, and it's just everything is red except for Idaho. Somehow Idaho escaped the debate over voting
really?
rights. But
Idaho of all states, right?
But everyone else had it, and half the states in the country have passed new laws making it harder to vote. And we saw this particularly in key swing states, places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio. And so we're seeing a really intense effort to go after the methods that expanded voting.
Now,
we're seeing things like, cutting early voting, shutting down voter registration drives, eliminating same-day registration, requiring government-issued IDs to cast a ballot, purging the voting rolls. I mean, we're seeing many different attempts to make it harder to vote.
Yeah, all of those. I mean, their sole purpose, really, right, is to, as you say, make it harder to vote, less opportunity for people to vote.
Well, I mean, the purported reason for them is to stop voter fraud.
Yeah, what voter fraud?
I and many other people have looked at this data and found that there really is no kind of voter fraud these laws would stop. Particularly voter impersonation, which is the fraud that they claim is most often occurring. I mean, there have been 1 billion votes cast since 2000 and only 31 credible cases of voter impersonation. So, I mean, you do the math and you see how big of a problem. No one shows up to the polls and says, I'm Bill Press, I want to vote. But what the problem that there is absentee ballot fraud is much more common. It's not a rampant problem, but it's far more common than voter impersonation. But ironically, all of these voter ID laws exempt absentee ballots. And one of the reasons they do that is because core Republican constituencies are more likely to vote absentee.
Let me ask you just a basic question. Why do we vote on Tuesdays, and why are we still voting on Tuesdays? Why do we start, and why are we still voting on Tuesdays of all days?
I mean, it dates back to the farm era when people would come to them. I'm serious. Like, it dates back to when people would go to the markets, and Tuesday was the day they went to the market, so that was election day. I mean, it makes no sense. It makes no sense that we have one day that people vote, that it's not a national holiday, and that's why we're seeing more than half the states in the country have some form of early voting right now. And the idea that we would cut early voting is crazy. I mean, we should want to be expanding this. And actually, it's interesting, people like Jeb Bush in Florida not so long ago in 2004 were for early voting. And I didn't hear any Republicans criticize early voting before Obama's election. But once there was this huge turnout of young voters, Hispanic voters, African-American voters, progressive voters, that's when you started to see people decide to oppose these methods that they had no problem with before.
You mentioned the national holiday. I know that Bernie Sanders had floated the idea of making Election Day a national holiday. Does that idea have any steam? Is that going to go anywhere?
People have been talking about it for a while, and I don't know why it hasn't gotten more steam. This seems like a common sense thing that both parties could agree on. I was just at a trial in North Carolina challenging their new voting bill, and one of the people who testified was a woman who worked a 72-hour shift at a Toyota plant, and she couldn't get off on Election Day. And so early voting was really important for her. And they asked her, well, didn't your bosses give you time off? And she's like, no. And they said, doesn't your boss know that that's illegal? And she's like, my boss doesn't care, you know. And I think that, you know, the fact is, yes, you have to allow your workers an ability to vote, but that's not anything that we're enforcing. And so you're talking about in certain states a very limited period of time, you know, during working hours on one day of the week during the week when they have to go vote. And I don't think that makes sense when we say so much is riding on these elections.
Ari Berman from The Nation magazine, author of the great new book, Give Us the Ballot, The Modern Struggle for Voting Rights in America. As Ari points out, it's been 50 years since the Voting Rights Act was signed, but 50 years of efforts to undermine it. Ari, what impact or what extra impetus did the Supreme Court decision give to this whole campaign against voting rights?
Oh, my God, it was like the strongest steroid you could ever get. I mean, you're talking about, you know, that they had already kind of created this Frankenstein monster of voter suppression where all these new states had passed these laws, and then the Supreme Court basically says, okay, let's unleash that monster. Let's perfect it and unleash it.
Yeah, basically you can do whatever you want almost, huh? Yeah.
Essentially, you know, we're going to take away the most effective tool the federal government had for stopping voting discrimination. What gave the Voting Rights Act its teeth was that it could block laws from coming to effect in the states where voter discrimination was most prevalent. So the fact that the federal government could stop laws coming from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the states of the South, and also some other states as well, was what enforced the Voting Rights Act and made it so that states had to follow it. And that's why it was such a successful piece of legislation. And what we're seeing is after that Supreme Court decision, laws that were blocked, like Texas's strict voter ID law, the strictest in the country, were immediately allowed to go into effect. There have been a very lengthy trial in Texas, and this case is still moving through the courts. In North Carolina, they passed the most sweeping restrictions since 1965, a month after that decision, essentially repealing or curtailing everything in the state that encouraged people to vote. I mean, those two states alone are case studies for, you know, why you need a strong Voting Rights Act. And then we've seen other states like Wisconsin prevail in court and implement strict voter ID laws. And so it's just very, very difficult to challenge these laws to the court right now. And the Supreme Court took away, I think, the most important protection the federal government had to try to stop this.
We have a link to Give Us the Ballot up on our website. And of course, you can get it from Amazon or any of the online websites or your local independent bookstore. Ari, have any of these restrictions, state restrictions, been in place long enough that we have any numbers on how the voting turnout has been reduced because of them?
Yeah, so we have two examples. One was a big study that the Government Accountability Office did about the 2012 election, and they compared states that had strict voter ID laws to states that don't. And what they found in Kansas and Tennessee, two specific states that have strict voter ID laws, is that voter turnout was reduced by 2 to 3%, with the largest drop-off among young, newly registered, and African-American voters. A shocking conclusion.
Yeah, right.
And who could have predicted? That's at 2 to 3% is enough to swing a close election.
Sure,
I mean, we're talking about Florida was decided by 537 votes in 2000, and so that can make a huge difference. What we're seeing in the 2014 election, the first election since the Supreme Court got of the Voting Rights Act, is that states like in Texas and North Carolina, thousands were turned away from the polls. In North Carolina, the group Democracy North Carolina identified 2,300 voters they knew were turned away because of these new restrictions. They estimated the actual number of voters, because they're not going to find all of them, was in the tens of thousands. And so I think this debate is moving from a theoretical debate over people arguing that people are going to be disenfranchised to actual evidence that people are being disenfranchised, that turnout is being lowered, and that there's really no good reason to do this. That we're turning away thousands away for no real reason based on a predicate that is not true.
So, and you indicated here that the target here is really people who are, let's face it, are likely to vote Democrat.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some unintended consequences from Republicans because I think, some elderly white voters are going to be impacted as well who have been voting Republican all their life. But clearly they've been designed, these laws, to hit the core of Obama's coalition. You look at a state like Texas where you can vote with a handgun permit but not a state-issued student ID. That has only one purpose, which is to hurt young voters because that University of Texas ID should be good enough to vote. You look at, things like early voting, voter registration drives, government-issued ID. I mean, these are all things that African Americans and Hispanics either don't have or in the same numbers as whites or use disproportionately. We know that in swing states like Ohio and Florida, African Americans were far more likely to use early voting. For example, in North Carolina, they were far more likely to use same-day voter registration. And so these are methods, these are voting reforms that help all Americans. I want to be very clear about that. But they disproportionately helped those Americans who are historically disenfranchised and for one reason or another needed an extra push to participate. And what we saw in 2008 was because of these expanded reforms, Obama had this unprecedented turnout, and then these new restrictions targeted the very methods that led to that turnout.
There it is, the right we cherish the most, or should as Americans anyhow, the right to vote. Under attack for the last 50 years, Ari Berman has spelled it all out in Give Us the Ballot. It's a continuing struggle, most important issue. Great work on this, Ari. Thanks so much. Congratulations again, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, Bill. I really appreciate it.
All right. Good luck with the book, Ari Berman at Give Us the Ballot. Check it out. It's a wonderful, important story. And the fight goes on. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are, 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Clinton Yates from the Washington Post will be here as a friend of Bill in the next hour, joined by Wes Lowery on the ground in Ferguson, Missouri, who received a summons to court yesterday for his role in the original Ferguson protest over a year ago. We'll get into that at the top of the next hour. Got to mention the report yesterday, shocking report that came out about from the FAA, not released by the FAA, but the Associated Press just happened to get a hold of a copy of this report. The report was triggered back in 2006, the study of air traffic controllers. And were they getting enough rest before they went on the job? What happened in 2006 down in Lexington, Kentucky, there was a regional airliner crashed while taking off from a runway that was too short. It got on the wrong runway, and it got there because the air traffic controller didn't even notice that it got on the wrong runway, wasn't paying attention, because it turned out he had only had 2 hours sleep in the previous 24 hours, and he admitted that he had dozed off. So they took a look at how much sleep air traffic controllers are getting. And here's what they found out. They found out, first of all, that 2 out of 10 air traffic controllers had committed significant errors in the previous year. 2 out of 10, like bringing planes too close together, landing too close together, or maybe getting on the wrong runways. And over half of those attributed their errors to fatigue. More than 6 out of 10 controllers indicated that in the previous year they had fallen asleep on the job.
That's a little scary.
6 out of 10 fallen asleep.
And we're talking about one of the most stressful jobs in the country.
Yeah, with a lot of lives at stake.
Yeah.
Your decisions, hundreds of people, their lives depend on your making the right call.
It makes me so uncomfortable.
Overall, controllers whose activity was closely monitored by scientists averaged 5.8 hours of sleep per day over the course of a work week. They averaged only 3.1 hours before their midnight shift. So those are working midnight.
Working the midnight shift.
During the day, they may take a nap, but they're not getting a full day's or night's sleep. Oh.
That's terrifying. That's a real problem.
I'll say.
That's a real problem.
And there are many examples of air traffic controllers making a mistake by letting planes get too close, in the air as they're approaching the airport. One of the most stunning to me was there were 2 cases that actually happened at National Airport here in Washington, where it was late at night and the planes contacted the tower and got no response.
Yeah.
And both of these planes landed on their own. The pilot just landed the plane with no air traffic controller bringing him in. Now, nobody was killed. The plane landed safely. What if, right? There'd been a piece of equipment on the runway.
Yeah.
What if? I mean, who knows, right? That's the air traffic controller is to bring them in and direct them to the correct runway. These pilots knew the airport, so they just landed and they worked their way over, rolled over to the terminal on their own. And they reported and said, there wasn't nobody answered at the tower, so we just came in. Hello? God. Yeah.
I bet you this is a problem, like, top to bottom, not just with these air traffic controllers, but with pilots and a lot of these people that have to go from place to place like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they've cracked down, I think, on the pilots. That was an issue at one time for pilots not getting enough rest, and there's strict rules on that. And there ought to be, and I hope there are now, on air traffic controllers. Just think of that the next time you get on a plane. You are flying blind.
Please don't.
All right, we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you've heard about all the unrest out in Ferguson, Missouri. We're going to find out more about it in our third hour together. Coming up, you got to wait until 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central on Free Speech TV, but you can watch it right away. Stay with us right away on our video stream, Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. Clinton Yates from the Washington Post will be here the entire hour as a friend of Bill, and then we will go out to talk to Washington Post reporter Wes Lowery on the job in Ferguson, Missouri. And yesterday, he was ordered to appear in court because a year ago, in the first Ferguson riots, he allegedly refused to leave a McDonald's restaurant when a police officer told him to. Boy, what a great third hour coming up. Stay with us.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. Clinton Yates joining us in the next hour as a friend of Bill. You know, Clinton is a frequent guest host here on the program. And we'll be joined by Wes Lowery, his fellow reporter from the Washington Post, live on the ground out in Ferguson, Missouri. He's got some big news to tell us about, personal news this morning. And up in Martha's Vineyard, President Obama continues his vacation. The only question really is, they don't even put out a schedule during his vacation days from the White House. The only question is, who will his golfing partners be today? He did play another round of golf yesterday, and that's the way he likes to enjoy his vacations.
Sure.
So maybe James Clyburn.
Oh, yeah.
Congressman Clyburn, maybe. Who knows? Back with Clinton Yates, hour number 3.
Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm
laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night. And I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money and judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
He does it again. Bernie Sanders, a big crowd in Los Angeles last night, 27,500 people at the sports arena, says the Los Angeles Police Department. Bernie, on a roll. Feel the burn. How about it? It is a Tuesday, August 11. Good to see you, people. And thank you for joining us here on the Bill Press Show as we boom out to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with the news of the day, such as there is any news here from Washington, with the President and the House and the Senate all out of town, and anybody with any sense. Obviously, those of us who don't have any sense are here.
Here we are. Right.
In the studio, our regular team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Bill, happy Tuesday.
Hey, good morning.
Jamie Benson on the phones, 866-55-PRESS. Monty Kanzler, our videographer for the day, and good friend Clinton Yates here for the entire hour as an FOB. Hi, Clinton.
What's up, Bill?
Good to see you. You're looking sharp today.
I'm trying. For those of you who are listening and not watching on the stream, I'm wearing a canary yellow shirt.
Yeah.
It's very color blocking. That's in this season, in case you don't know that. Sort of the basic colors. I keep up with this stuff, Peter. Don't act like you don't know what's going on.
I'm with you.
Keeping it simple, and I like it today.
You look good.
I'm feeling clean.
You look good.
I almost want to reach for my sunglasses, man. Whoa.
It's a good look.
Yeah.
Good summary look.
Indeed, We were just watching Donald Trump for a half an hour on Fox, and then Donald Trump for a half an hour on CNN by the phone, both on the phone. The only guy did 4 Sunday shows
via the phone.
Via phone, cell phone. Nobody else could get away with it.
Good business if you can get it. Look, the reason why he does this...
Barack Obama could not do that.
He could, but he doesn't want to. The reason why he does this is obviously a control method. The bottom line is that when you're in... what a lot of people like to do who are used to being in positions of power is reframe the zone that the conversation is in to their advantage.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing happens to me all the time. Let's say on Twitter, somebody writes something obnoxious, and then you reply to them in public on the thing, and they say, "Oh, this conversation isn't for Twitter. We got to take it to email." It's like, no. You started it here, and the whole purpose is to have it in public. You know what I'm saying? But when you try to manipulate the framework of the conversation, it's because not necessarily you have something to hide, but you feel that it gives you an advantage. advantage because you're not necessarily as out there as you would be if you were literally standing right in someone's face. And that's why Trump does that. I mean, there's a brilliance to it from an optic standpoint, but that's really all it's about. It's a control method.
I can't believe that they let him get away with it. I can't believe that these stations are saying like,
the point is,
yeah, sure, we're good.
He is getting away with it.
Yeah.
And then everybody's talking about it, and there's at least one person who is it's eating his heart out because he is not on the air again until September 11th, Stephen Colbert. So they're doing
September 8th. He's on September 8th.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
The networks are now doing their little dog and pony show for the TV critics, and Colbert admitted last night it's tough for him.
I want to do jokes on Donald Trump so badly, and I have no venue. So right now I'm just dry trumping.
not a bad thing. Okay.
Not a bad joke.
Okay. Wow.
I can't believe we're living in an America without Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert.
Did you watch the final show?
I did.
You did?
I did.
I thought it was interestingly emotional, but not in the way that I expected. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't expect him to miss it. You know, and I for whatever reason, it was almost as if he felt like it wasn't his choice, but I don't know. Like it almost seemed like he surprised himself in how much it was going to affect him when it was time to walk away, which I thought was odd. It's not like he's a young dude, and it's not like he's also that old of a dude. You know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't have think that he would have thought he would have been doing this for the rest of his life, but
the moment where Colbert stopped him from going to break and broke it down and said exactly what Jon Stewart has meant to The Daily Show. It hit him it hit me like a ton of bricks, but it hit Stewart like a ton of bricks. He didn't know what to do. He just kind of sat and just stared down at his desk in disbelief. It was really touching.
It's real. Yeah, we had it. Lots to get into here with Clinton Yates, and then we're going to be joined by Wes Lowery, Clinton's sidekick at the Washington Post, who will either join us from, we're not sure whether from his prison cell or the courtroom,
who knows,
or the McDonald's restaurant, depending on how well he's done. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
All right, just a couple of other stories making news. We go to Ariel, New Jersey, where a 37-year-old man has been arrested for jaywalking. Should also point out that when they stopped him for jaywalking, they found 64 bags of heroin inside of his pants.
Wow!
So if you're going to jaywalk, folks, make sure you don't have 64 bags of heroin inside your pants. Officers say they saw the man jaywalking on Clementon Road, and police just stopped over and asked him what was going on and realized that he was having a little trouble walking because he had stuffed all these bags of heroin into his pants and then found all the baggies. So, yeah.
I don't even like jaywalking when I'm smoking a cigarette.
Right? Be on your best behavior. There's a very simple rule. Only break one law at a time.
That's a good point.
All right? Only break one law at a time. That's how you do it. We have possibly have a new candidate for president on the Democratic side. It has been reported that Larry Lessig, Professor Lawrence Lessig, is planning to announce a formation to exploratory committee. You know how it goes, right?
Okay.
The whole thing. I'm not sure if he's actually going to go through with it, but it seems like this is the year, right? If you're flirting with it, just might as well go for it. He's going to hold a press conference to discuss his candidacy, which will concentrate entirely on fixing the corruption plaguing our political system and the need to make citizen equality the central issue of the 2016 primary.
He's a good man, but delusional. I think he launched his campaign. He's a good book out about money and politics. We've had him in studio. Mm-hmm. And but is it true he's going to have Jim Webb as his running mate?
I sort of feel like if you're a guy like that, I know that we're this far away from the election, but it's almost like it's too late. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of weird how far back the cycle has been shifted. It's that like if you're a nobody, it's too late if you're not already in the race, considering how many people are already there.
Yeah.
And women's fighter Ronda Rousey had a AMA on Reddit yesterday afternoon and asked me anything. You can ask her whatever you want. She made a little bit of news because people have been out there talking about whether or not she could beat Floyd Mayweather, the boxing champ. She was asked
in a boxing match or in an MMA fight.
She clarified this in her AMA yesterday. She said, quote, Floyd is one of the best boxers of all time. He would definitely beat me in a boxing match, but I don't do matches. I fight for a living. In a no-rules fight, I could beat anyone on this planet, including Floyd.
Wow. Whoa, tough talk. I mean, who's gonna say no?
I don't know if we'll ever see that.
No, I would hope not.
I would hope not. I really would.
That's barbaric.
I don't love that. But she's you see, she knocked that woman out in 40 seconds. That fight she had.
I mean, there's an argument she needs to just stop fighting and get on with her life as an actor. You know what I'm saying? Because
she's got a successful life outside of fighting.
That's what I'm saying. Like the fighting at this point is almost a waste of her time. You know what I mean? As well as everybody else's whose face she's pounding in.
Yeah.
But I was talking to somebody the other day at a bar, and they were telling me, she's on her way to becoming the next. And I was like, on her way? I was like, she's the biggest star by a wide margin in MMA, and you can't name anybody still fighting, basically.
Name another woman fighter.
Oh, name another fighter, period, who's still, I mean, I'm serious. Can you name a dude that's fighting in MMA right now? Probably not.
Yeah, you know what? I can't.
You can't. You know what I'm saying? And Ronda Rousey is the only thing that event has going for it.
Yeah.
And, she doesn't need it anymore.
All right. There you go. See what you stirred up?
I know. Right?
All right. 14 minutes after the hour. Now that Clinton Yates is on the sports desk at the Washington Post.
It's a thing, man.
It's a thing. It is. So I got to start by asking you, I'm a little nervous about the Nats. Should I be?
Yes, absolutely. They're on the West Coast. They're out there in your neck of the woods. They're in L.A. I don't even know if they won
last
yesterday.
night.
They did win yesterday. Okay, they won last
beat
night.
the Dodgers.
I was going to say that game was so late. I went to sleep on it. But if they don't win at least one of these three series, they play the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Rockies. They didn't win one of these series. I'm not throwing the season away, but it does not look good for them.
This is the moment in the season that a lot of people keep saying, just wait. We're going to get Jason Worth back. We're going to get Rendon back. We're going to get these guys back.
But you can't wait that long. I mean, it's August. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can wait and say, just wait, and then next thing you know, it's the end of the season.
No, I agree. Like, here we are. Like, a lot of these guys are back, and
10-game road trip. You got to win one of those series, or else.
There's been a pattern lately, and it was true with the Rockies, although Carol and I were there Saturday night with one game that they won, but where they start out with a lead and then blow it. Start out with a lead and then blow it.
The bullpen's a problem. Nobody in the back end of the order is hitting. Matt Williams is a jerk. Nobody likes him, and it's not my opinion that he's a jerk. I mean that he's having issues with communicating with his team, but. We'll see, man. They might miss it.
Another quick local sports, local, national, worldwide, but also local angle with Katie Ledecky.
Yeah,
just walking home with all the gold in the women's swimming, and Michael Phelps winning all the gold in the men's. Right?
She casually dominates women's swimming, and is breaking her own records.
Nobody's talking about it.
No, I mean, there's a couple of reasons for that. I think that it's hard for people to get excited about swimming in a non-Olympic event situation, and number two. Let's think of the people who were stars in swimming. Number one, they're not that many. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're talking. I mean, you go back to Mark Spitz, who was only a star because he won God knows how many gold medals. But then there's Michael Phelps
in the Olympics.
Yeah, in the Olympics, right? And then there's Michael Phelps, and Michael Phelps sort of shifted the conversation about why certain people are stars. You know what I mean? Like, this guy was a big deal. He won a lot of stuff. He was a team star as well as an individual star, and then he became a bit of a TMZ celebrity, and that sort of changed, I think, what the incentive was for a lot of these Olympic athletes to really get into sort of star modes, because he turned out to be just another kid, who liked doing things. And he actually, God knows if he has an actual problem between all his sort of driving issues. But like, if you're Katie Ledecky at this point, you can walk down the street, and that might be an advantage in terms of how you live your life and how you swim. You know what I mean? Her athletic achievements, I think, are pretty incredible to this point, but the reason why people don't talk about it that much is because she's not a star, and if I'm in her camp, so to speak, I don't have a huge problem with that at this point.
It's one of those things that, like, it's certainly not a great spectator sport, right? Like,
no.
We're not going out with friends to watch them. And these stars pop up every 4 years. It's a lot of fun to watch on TV, but then what happens after the Olympics, right? Like, I know that there are things that she's winning, but...
that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing right now. On another issue, I get the Black Lives Matter movement. I really do. I think it's very important, and it's important that be kind of front and center right now. But why are they picking on Bernie Sanders, of all people?
I think there's a couple of different reasons. I think, number one, because I think Bernie Sanders provides, while at the same time the smallest amount of sort of resistance from a basic security standpoint and attitudinal standpoint. In other words, he also provides the largest platform. I mean, what I'm saying is that he's not some totally fringe guy. And I mean, I think that there's some sincerity in that, meaning it's not like running over the substitute teacher, but it's like, hey, this guy actually might be on our side. I think he's got the highest sort of, I just make up a term here, ally quotient, for all of the people that are in the race from the Democratic side right now. I mean, what are you going to do? Bum rush a Hillary thing? No, because then it becomes...
Well, they couldn't get close to Hillary.
I mean, and that becomes a totally different situation, and so...
They could not get close to her on stage.
No, but to that point, I credit Bernie a little bit with not being a total jerk about everything, because the fact is that he's going to have all the platforms he needs. He doesn't, he's not losing out on opportunities, no matter what various columnists around the country say about it, who are basically intonating that you're biting the hand that feeds you by interrupting Bernie Sanders' press conferences. I don't think that's either appropriate or correct. But I just think that it's easy to look at Bernie and say, you know what, if anybody's going to be on the proverbial side of the movement, he's probably the guy that makes the most sense. So I don't think it's as much as picking on the little guy as people think it is, but I do think there's a component of that in the strategy there.
I was thinking about this yesterday after we talked about this a little on the show. It's like, it would make sense to me for them to go and disrupt any of the 17 Republicans that are running for president way more than it does make sense for like Bernie or someone on the Democratic side. But I think that there are a lot of people who vote Democratic who still don't get it, who still don't get this movement. And I don't know that there's anybody, even Bernie necessarily. I mean, he's really good on those issues, but none of them have taken it head on and have really addressed it head on.
Yeah. Here's Bernie, by the way, last night. Now, you got to say, to the credit of the Black Lives Matter movement, that Bernie, this was not in Bernie's stump speech until maybe Seattle.
Right.
But this was last night in Los Angeles.
There is no president, none, 1 year after the death of Michael Brown, no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism than I will. No president who will push harder for fundamental changes in our criminal justice system.
So he's added that to his message.
And if that's the goal, hey, that's a bit of a win.
And I think, he's hired this new press secretary who went to him and said, listen, economic populism, that's great. Tie that with social justice, right?
Yeah.
And, you got a winning message.
And the two things are linked on, I mean, not to get too wonky on this, but those two things are linked on more than just a message level. I mean, those are linked on an economic level. I mean, there's a policy factor there that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, Bernie may end up being, stronger because of this.
I mean, I think Bernie Sanders at this point, whether or not he becomes the next nominee, never mind president, he's made a name for himself in a way that I don't think a lot of people thought that he could do. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think people thought that Bernie Sanders was going to come out of the gate swinging and actually be a relevant figure, whether or not his numbers or whatever you think they are. People know who Bernie Sanders is now. It was 6 months ago. Most of America probably didn't.
Clinton Yates here from the Washington Post to join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my
computer. This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I say dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour now. Clinton Yates in the studio with us here from the Washington Post. He writes about a lot of stuff and talks about anything, but he's on the sports desk at the Washington Post. There's a new sport called shotgunning.
No.
It's been around for a long
So Claire
time.
McCaskill was just on the screen, and I turned in the break. I turned to Peter and I said, yo, did you see Claire McCaskill shotgunning a beer? And so we called up the story, and I guess if her there was some situation where if Todd Aiken won, I can't remember what the scenario
So she
was.
had a bet.
She had a bet with her
shotgun
daughters to shotgun a beer, and so then she did it and provided photographic proof on Twitter. So what shotgunning a beer is,
I must admit, I'm sorry.
I am terrible at shotgunning beers.
I do not know what
I've shotgunned
shotgunning
a couple
a beer
beers in my day.
Is it just
It's been a minute.
No,
is it guggling a whole
explain
beer?
this, Peter.
All right, you get a can of beer.
Yeah.
Usually it's a set of keys that does the trick here, and you jab a hole in the side of the beer. You put your mouth over it, and you pop the can, and it just drains into your mouth.
So there's a flow situation that's created that is
crush
different
this beer
from the normal glug of a
quickly.
beer. Yeah.
Why do you pop the
because it goes a lot faster.
The airflow.
Right? Like if you try and chug a beer, you got the glug 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 glug.
But
you
if
put
you-
a hole in the side and then pop the top, it just goes whoosh.
Yeah.
If you pop the top, wouldn't it rush out the
Well,
top?
I mean, don't hold it upside down. You
hold it on the side, and it's a whole,
and
and
it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a college thing.
Right. Unless you're Claire McCaskill. Learn something new today.
All right. The next time you're in.
No, I'm not shotgunning any beers next time we're here. That is not happening.
Wes Lowery, we will find him somewhere in Ferguson, Missouri when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. Tuesday, August 11. Clinton Yates is here from the Washington Post.
What up?
With a friend of Bill and Clinton. You know, I picked up the Post this morning, and I see this headline in the Washington Post. Washington Post reporter charged with trespassing and interfering with a police officer. And I thought, whoa, what's that all about? Pick up the paper. I read, a Washington Post reporter who was arrested at a restaurant last year while reporting on protests in Ferguson, Missouri, has been charged in St. Louis County with trespassing and interfering with a police officer and ordered to appear in court. Wesley Lowery. What? I thought, what? He's supposed to be on our show this morning.
Well, he gets one free call. Let's be clear. You get that one free call.
And sure enough, he is on our news line this morning. Wes, what the hell is going on?
See, you would think that if a reporter was going to get charged from the Post, it would be Clinton.
Hey, now. All right.
Oh.
That's why I don't periscope my activities.
Apparently, it's, the company you keep. My mom always tried to warn me.
How are you doing, though, man? Like, I mean, what?
Yeah, seriously, this is BS. It seems to me. Us?
Yes. I mean, this is pretty nonsensical. As I said somewhere yesterday, you would have thought for all the conversation we had last year, I mean, this is a big embarrassment last year when myself and Ryan Riley left in a Post took into custody. It was ridiculous. The President of the United States came out the very next day and called it essentially ridiculous. And I thought we kind of resolved this.
Yeah.
In a very public litigation of this thing. But for all of the lessons that we all thought St. Louis County might have learned from last year about optics and rhetoric and smart decision making. Maybe they didn't learn some of those lessons, and so obviously this is ridiculous. But if need be, I'll happily show up in court with the with the Washington Post lawyers who have beaten White Houses and whatnot, and we will come to St. Louis County and we'll use the discovery to get all types of records and stuff like that, and see what happens.
So let me get this straight. No charges were filed against Darren Wilson, but they're filing charges against you?
Yeah, so they filed 4 more charges against journalists who are covering protests than they have against the police officer who killed an 18-year-old. And so it seems that's about it. Like I said, it seems a little ridiculous to me.
Aside from how ridiculous this whole thing is, just the optics of that is, I mean, what are they doing? What are they thinking?
I don't get that. You feel like whoever okayed that had to be thinking this is either personal or is totally clueless as to what the state of America is at this point.
I mean, the first person to receive charges, and one of the first people to receive charges in relation to what happened in Ferguson last year, is a black reporter.
Yeah.
That seems...
That's tough.
I guess that's a little tone deaf.
Let me ask you this, though, Wes. So it's a year later. You're there. A lot of the same people who were protesting are there. I don't really know what the identity of some of these law enforcement people are. But back then, a year ago when we were watching on the periscopes, when you were out on the front lines, people were reporting, and there was a very sort of nervy sense because there was no real knowledge of what was going to happen next in terms of potential violence from any protesters or more specifically from any law enforcement people. What's it like a year later in terms of just the vibe on the ground and what people feel like in terms of what may happen next and how they're interacting with each other?
It's very, very similar. I think that it's been a very similar feeling, especially after the violence that broke out on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. There was, several shootings. There was, and essentially, and that's not unlike what happened on many nights in August. It's hard to remember all of it now, but on those very first few nights of protests, there was very often some gang activity that took place using the cover of the protest. There were some shootings and people who were hurt. There were some, robberies and looting, and so this was very much the feeling on the ground for at least the last 24 hours. Has very much been a lot like last August. The sense of uncertainty, the sense of everyone kind of walking on edge, and at any moment, some kid could throw a water bottle at the police and everyone could get shot. There's always this real tension and this fear of a bunch of people standing around waiting for something horrible to happen.
Do we know who are the people that started the violence or started the shooting? I mean, were they protesters, or there, as you say, people who were just using under the cover of the protest, were basically gang violence? What was?
I mean, I would put it in that, based on my experience, my time on the ground here, I put it in that second pot. And I was talking to Alderman Antonio French, who's been pretty prominent down here as well, and he said the same thing yesterday. This idea that since the very beginning, there's been a criminal element that has used the protests as cover for criminal activity. And so what we've seen, like I said, is very often you're seeing people marching in the street, big crowds gathering, and that becomes a spectacle, which means a lot of other people come to watch that. We've seen some gangs who set up shop and come to watch it. We've seen, tons of riffraff, essentially, who, bring their cars down and sit in these lots, along these stores, just kind of watching what happens, and then, they run into someone who they have beef with, they run into someone who they don't like, they get in an argument off to the side, the next thing someone pulls a gun. And so we've seen that kind of time and time again, and so very often these shootings or this violence itself is not the same people who are leading the march down the street.
Oh, so, I mean, in your estimation, is there any feeling of, look, because last year this time, when the Michael Brown situation happened, there were a lot of people that were willing to say, oh, well, this was a bit of an outlier. Oh, he was at fault. But through work like what you've been doing, in terms of documenting the number of police shootings and killings that have been happening over the past year, there's not a person who pays attention in America right now that can't honestly admit to themselves there's a problem with this. You know what I mean? And so I'm wondering, is there any sense of progress at this point? You know what I mean? At the 1 year mark of the place where this really, really became a big national conversation.
One thing I think is really interesting, and this is something I'm wrestling with, is this idea of if the legacy of Ferguson will ever actually lead to improvement in Ferguson. And so there's a history when you look at it of places that are kind of civil rights touchstones, in fact, not being the places that advance. Everyone else learns the lesson. The example I always use is Money, Mississippi, which is the town where Emmett Till was lynched. Money, Mississippi literally doesn't exist anymore. Rather than get it together, they all just left. Everyone was just ashamed to have been from there, and the city physically literally does not exist. Everyone moved away. Wow. And so what was this lesson learned? Well, in Money, everyone just said, well, let's just leave and pretend this thing didn't happen. Now, I don't think Ferguson, Missouri is going to disappear. But with that said, there is a real question of, there has been more legislation passed in several other states than in Missouri.
But aren't there some changes in Ferguson in terms of new leadership, either in the city council or in the police department?
Yes, and so there are several new city councilors who've been elected. There is a new interim police chief who is a black officer. There's a new interim city manager. And so there has been some cosmetic change. But I think that in some ways, and this based on my time on the ground and working in Ferguson a lot of the problems here are much deeper than cosmetic, right? And so there certainly have been some changes, and the state has stepped in terms of how they're allowed to use tickets. But what we're seeing is they're still pulling a ton of people over. They're still handing out a ton of tickets and a ton of warrants. And so, and on top of that, you can't force change in a place that doesn't want to be changed. Yeah. And I think that for people on both sides of this, there's still a lot of bitterness here in Ferguson.
Yeah. Now, let's come back to Wes Lowery. What is
what's next?
What's next for you?
And so we're kind of huddling with the Washington Post lawyers, figuring out what exactly we're going to do. Probably some meetings with a defense attorney down here in Missouri. Figuring out what exactly has to happen. I've got a court date later this month here in August. And again, I don't want to overly dramatize this. This is like a misdemeanor trespassing charge. But with that said, it's not like I'm going to plead to this nonsense.
Right.
And by the way,
fight the power, Wes. Come on, man.
And coming back, you and Ryan Riley, you were reporting on what was going on.
There's video. Everybody's seen the video of what happened.
And you're in the McDonald's restaurant, right?
Well, the last words I say before they take me to custody, and it's on video, is can I please adjust my backpack? So it's not even like, listen, there are some times, if we're going to be honest, there's some times, in my reporting career or otherwise, where maybe I did things where I deserved to be taken into custody.
Right.
This was not one of those times.
Yeah, sometimes you got to be a little defiant to get a story, you know what I mean?
Exactly, but this wasn't it. I was just trying to figure out, like, hey, I see you guys are evacuating, but can I go get my rental car, or do I need to just walk away? What door do you want me to go out of? And they were just being kind of indignant jerks, and wouldn't answer any questions. And, and so it's just, like I said, this is not like, there are obviously reporters who taste much deeper injustice in this, but it is emblematic of a problem here, right? And the fact that 2 journalists are going to be charged in the United States of America for doing their jobs, it is kind of shocking to a lot of people.
It is. Yeah. The fact that they just didn't walk away from this, that a year later there's nobody there with enough sense to say, this is not going to do us any good. We got bigger fish to fry. Yeah. I mean, it's stunning. And it speaks volumes about the lack of progress, to your point, Clinton, a year later.
It's pretty sad.
Plus, we saw, Peter, the story the other day. So far this year, there have been 9 unarmed young black men killed by white police officers in this country, 1 every 2 weeks.
No. It was bigger than that, wasn't it?
It's 24, right? 24 total. 1 every 9 days.
1 every 9 days.
1 every 9 days.
Yeah.
24. One every 9 days. Yeah.
Crazy. It's insane out there.
Right. Well, take care of yourself there, man.
All right, Wes.
I was trying to stay out of cuffs on this trip, but we'll see.
All right, man. Say what's up to Ryan for me.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks so much, Wes, for joining us. Thanks for your time. Wes Lowery at the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. He's a damn good reporter.
And he's handling it well enough.
And he is.
You know what I mean? It's a setback, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Haven't heard the end of this story.
No, absolutely not.
All right. Right back here with Clinton Yates at 866-55-PRESS. Chime in if you like to.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Bill Press, happy 10 years of great shows. I must say, I enjoy coming on the show. I enjoy listening to you. But most of all, I love your hair.
Oh, Jackie Spears. Congresswoman, I should say, Jackie Spear from California. A good friend of the program and joining our 10-year anniversary celebration, with which Clinton continues. 10 years is not just like one day; it's like a whole year of celebration.
Right? Yeah, you got to
part of it.
Keep
here,
the party going. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to
indeed.
have been lucky enough to be a part of this show. It's been very helpful for me, very enlightening.
We have bigger plans for you. You know that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate
just
that.
Just keep riding with us here. You never know where you're going to
I'm here.
Clinton Yates from the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. Let's continue the conversation there, part of it we were having with Wes Lowery, and we certainly wish him well and hope they come to their senses and drop this stupid pursuit of him a year later. But a year later, the real question is, and that's what a lot of people were asking last week, have we made any progress in this country on this police-community relations, particularly targeting young African-American men?
I think we have, in just the context of what I mentioned in the last segment, which is the people that are... I remember last year, I'd write a column or I'd say something on this show or, another station, and I'd immediately get tons of emails and phone calls that always gave police the benefit of the doubt. And the amount of support that people just sort of naturally felt they had towards officers. People were, it was amazing how folks would be like, well, what do you mean you don't believe the police? Like that very basic notion was so difficult for some people to unpack that it required, happened again. And after 5 to 6 people just were made famous based upon the fact that they died in police custody, the sort of average person who walked, who would reply or say something to you that was like, well, this was an outlier. Those people have sort of gone away for the most part in my life anecdotally. It's a different discussion now to sort of investigate everything on a case-by-case basis and say, oh, well, this one was bad and this one was, sort of a little different.
What difference did the video make?
I think the video makes a ton of difference because at that point, we talked about this. At that point, there's no, it's not word for word. You look at what happened at Cincinnati. That video was frightening. The guy just pulls his gun out and shoots a guy in the head. There's no, there's no arguing with that. And
the North Charleston video.
The North Charleston video was frightening as well. And so the Tamir Rice video, and so there's so many things that happened where, again, the average person who considers himself to be a decent human being, who is otherwise law-abiding, who just trusts police officers, they were forced to, reevaluate what they're really doing and who's working for whom. And I think that's probably the most progress. Whether or not that actually affects the way police officers interact with people on the ground, I don't know. But the way that the public has sort of moved on from, the cops are the cops, so you got to believe them. I think that's where we've seen a lot of steps
I wonder
forward.
how many people are out there and have been put away and convicted both in a court of law and in a court of public opinion for that type of mentality.
Yeah.
Well, this cop says this, so it's got to be true. I think that we've reached a point now where we can respect the police officers, but at the same time know that there are bad ones out there.
Yeah.
For the longest time, that's the worst thing you could say about the police is there are some bad cops.
Right.
And they'd step up and protect that shield. But you just got to admit it. There are bad police officers out there.
And the system works for them, too. That's what the Sandra Bland case showed most specifically, was that neither one of them was necessarily doing anything wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Not illegal.
That's illegal, right?
Yeah.
Wrong, right? The rule of law does not make right. But I'm saying that's sort of the scariest part is I think a lot of people have been forced to come to terms with the fact that, listen, police officers get a large amount of leeway that, although not illegal, is not the right thing to do, and that's where you sort of are forced to, reevaluate what you actually think about what the role of a law enforcement person is. Should they just be an all-powerful entity, or should they be a person that tries to help you, be safe?
We have this national conversation. We have this awareness that we didn't have before. But I think the public has come a lot farther along that road than the police departments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've still got a long way to go. Perfect day to have you in today. Thank you so much, Clinton.
Glad to be here, Bill.
Always good to see you.
Certainly.
All right, carry on. And
Free Wes.
Free Wes.
Free Wes. I'm making T-shirts.
Free Wes.
Believe it.
Let's do it. We'll wrap things up with a parting shot when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, amid all the media attention to Donald Trump, something very important has gotten lost, and that is Senator Chuck Schumer's decision to oppose President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran. I mean, no wonder nobody noticed, because he timed his announcement to land in the middle of the first GOP debate when, of course, nobody was paying attention. And Schumer based his decision on the phoniest of reasons, because he said he's against it, because he said he's afraid of what Iran might do 10 years from now when the initial deal expires. I mean, nonsense. As if anybody knows what to expect on any issue 10 years from now. Now, but as ridiculous as it is, Schumer's got every right to oppose the deal. But in so doing, he also showed why he's not qualified to be the next Democratic leader of the Senate. It's the leader's job to unite Democrats, not to divide them. Yet given a chance to stand with President Obama, Schumer chose to stand instead with John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, and Benjamin Netanyahu. Look, Senate Democrats need to look for somebody else. Dick Durbin, Patty Murray, Dianne Feinstein, Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, anybody but Chuck Schumer to be their next leader. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Tuesday. It's all yours. Make the most of it. Come back again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.